Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beneath the Silence, Healing the Wounds of Betrayal Trauma. I'm your host, Sandy Joy, and I welcome you back and any new listeners or viewers. This is you're welcome. You're very, very welcome to be here, and I hope that you're able to um, take some great information with you that you no longer feel so alone or um, hopefully there's validation. That's my goal. Okay. So today I'm going to address one of the most invalidated forms of betrayal trauma, and this is pornography and sex addiction as relational betrayal trauma. As I stated in my podcast last week, although I am focusing around the porn and sex addiction as it relates to betrayal trauma, it is very relational and transferable for other forms of addiction and other forms of betrayal trauma, okay, as well. So just know that there's going to be some things that may not you may not feel fit you, but there's going to be many other things that you go, yes, that fits. That makes sense. I can relate to that. Okay. So as a reminder, these podcasts are not edited. They're raw, they're real and vulnerable. So you may see me as a human being equal to you. Okay. So grab a cup of tea, coffee, water, and join me as I jump into this topic that I call a pandemic all in itself. Okay. So this episode, just so you know, is not about morality. All right. Everyone has their own values and morals and what fits them. I could really get into the human trafficking and violence against women, you know, component of what pornography and sex addiction is, but that's not my goal for today. That's a whole other ballgame. I want to keep it to around the betrayal trauma. Okay. So this episode is not about morality, and it's not about sexual shame. It is about deception, the lies. It is about violated consent and trauma, especially like betrayal trauma. Okay. So if you are a partner or a spouse or an ex-partner or ex-spouse of someone with an addiction, okay, especially around porn, because this is the one that tends to be more societal accepted. And those people that accept it don't know the actual harm it does. And it does change to the brain. Okay. So if you've been told, so this podcast is for you. Okay. So if you've been told it's just porn, or maybe, he has a few drinks. Okay. Everyone does it. You're insecure. You're overreacting. Please hear this clearly. Your pain makes sense. This topic is extremely heavy for some of you and possibly activating. Please, please take care of yourself in whatever way that you need to meet your needs in a healthy manner. First and foremost, you need to pause it. You need to take a break and come back to it later when you're in a different, space, headspace, whatever. Do that. Okay. Do whatever you need to do for you. And please feel free, especially if you're activated, to reach out to me. I would be happy to sit with you to help you regulate, to even talk through what the activation was and what you might be able to do to help yourself. Okay. If you already have a counselor, therapist, reach out to that person for additional support. Okay. But know that you can reach out to me. So, why pornography and sex addiction? Okay. We're going to talk about why they are betrayals. You may get the sex addiction part rather than the pornography. So, but I'm going to focus on this, okay? And I'm going to do it in two stages eventually. Then I'm going to talk about pornography. Then I'm going to talk about sex addiction. Okay? So, pornography and sex addiction become betrayals, not because of sex, because sex addiction actually isn't about the actual act. It is about the thought of the act. It is about the fantasy. It is about the planning. It is about um, all the before stuff, if you will, because often the sex act, well, it may feel good. Sorry, too much information, or it's really not about that because there is often a letdown afterwards where shame and guilt live. Okay. Potentially. Some are very indifferent. They don't think they're doing anything wrong. It's what they want to do, and they're going to do whatever they want to do. Okay. But the betrayal is not because of the sex or the fantasies or whatever the case may be. It is because of the secrecy. The betrayal lies in the secrecy, in the deception, in the double lives, in the broken relational agreements, in the sexual displacement, often called intimacy anorexia. Okay? It's the gaslighting that happens especially not only before, but especially after. So Dr. Omar Minwala names this pattern integrity abuse disorder. If you happen to have one of these addictions and you are listening to my podcast, you may not like what I have to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because we have to acknowledge, we have to speak truth, and we have to own it if you're planning on any sort of recovery or if your partner is. It is called integrity abuse disorder, and it is abuse. It is violent abuse. It is intimate partner violence. Full stop. You don't have to hit or raise a hand for it to be violent. Okay. It's a form of abuse rooted in entitlement, lack of empathy, and chronic deception, not merely compulsive behavior. So cheating is defined by betrayal of trust, not physical proximity. If pornography was hidden, lied about, protected over the relationship, used while claiming exclusivity, monogamy, minimized after discovery, then relational betrayal trauma occurred and integrity abuse disorder exists. I'm going to talk, and I know I've talked about the secret sexual abasement before. I'm going to talk about it again because it is so important for this segment, for this podcast. Okay. So again, Dr. Minwala, I've never met the man, never talked to the man, but I idolize him. And he doesn't know this either, my savior back in 2016 when I found my first article by Dr. Minwala on the 13 dimensions of trauma when I was going through what I was going through with my ex-husband's porn and sex addiction and severe fetishes and what I had no idea about. So Dr. Minwala describes a secret sexual basement as a hidden world of pornography, sexual behaviors, fantasies, or online acting out or in-person acting out that exists beneath the relationship. So we have to get beneath the silence. We have to talk about it. Okay. So one partner lives upstairs, believing the relationship is honest. Sexual exclusivity exists. In other words, monogamy exists. And consent is intact. So if I'm consenting to have sexual relations, I'm believing it is intact. I don't know the secret sexual basement exists. Okay. But the other partner lives downstairs in the basement, protecting those secrets. And the trauma comes from discovering that your reality was false. It's a reality collapse. Okay? It's learning that your consent was violated and never truly given, as you cannot give true consent as the sexual behavior of your partner was not disclosed to you. And in some countries, it's actual sexual assault and a criminal offense. In Canada, it's a criminal offense. So this means that you were sexually abused and sexually assaulted, raped even, because you could not give consent of something you knew nothing about, when something you knew nothing about was happening. And you may need to sit with that for a moment, or two, or 10, because it's hard to hear. But I don't excuse my language. I don't bullshit. I don't hold things back, because we don't heal by holding back. If I'm holding back, okay. It's realizing your nervous system was never safe and is now in shock, and it's profound confusion and grief. It's where betrayal is in all of those things. This is why partners say, I don't know who I married or who I was married to. I don't know who this person is that I have been with. Like, who is this person? Who are they really? Many partners state that it is if the person they thought they knew had died, and the person standing in front of them looks like their partner, but is an absolute, complete stranger. They do not know them. They do not know what they're capable of in its entirety, because they know they're capable of, obviously, once discovery has happened, even some discovery. But it's like they're a complete stranger in their partner's body, and they're no longer safe. This is what betrayal trauma is. And it's not weakness. It is trauma, betrayal trauma. So Dr. Manwala also talks about deceptive sexuality to go along with that integrity abuse. And deceptive sexuality includes sexual entitlement. I can do whatever I want. What she doesn't know won't hurt her. It's the lack of empathy, as I've already mentioned. It's ongoing deception. It's the pattern lying, pathological lying. It's minimization of harm. Well, I didn't act out with anybody else. It's I'm only watching, or webcams, or I'm not doing it in person. Minimizing, or stating that, what's so wrong with it? You're not hurting anybody. No? Look at your partner. They look like they're hurting. Okay. And it's blame shifting onto the partner. So remember Darvo, deny, accuse, or attack the partner, and blame shifting. Oh, if she would only put out, if she would only do this, if she only lost weight, if she only gained weight, whatever the case may be, it's blame shifting and it's projection. Partners have often are often told to heal themselves, you know, regulate their own reactions. Work on your triggers. Like, why are you still so triggered? It happened a month ago. You've known for a month. You've known for a year. You've known for 10 years. Triggers, activation without healing those components or having that ownership and recovery of their partner, or partner that keeps going back and they're finding out after a number of years that things have started up again or are continuing. It's, work on your triggers. Be more understanding. I was abused as a child. Sorry. Sorry. If you are a person with this addiction and you were abused as a child, I am so sorry that happened to you. You did not deserve it. You did not deserve it. However, your partner doesn't deserve this pain that you have caused. And your trauma, your abuse from childhood, I highly hope that you're seeking therapy to work through that because you didn't deserve it. But it is no excuse, none, zero, zilch of an excuse of why you're acting out now and how you're hurting your partner now and have. Okay. So partners are often told, again, be more understanding while deception continues. Healing cannot occur in the presence of ongoing betrayal. The next section that I'm going to talk about is around, again, this is around pornography, and it's from Fight the New Drug. And Fight the New Drug is a research-based, non-religious organization focused on the neurological, relational, and psychological impacts of pornography. And they talk about what the science shows, okay? They do all kinds of research. And they highlight three core truths: that porn harms the brain, okay? It does the same to the brain what cocaine does to the brain. Porn harms relationships, and porn harms people. No question, okay? So we're going to first talk about pornography in the brain. So pornography activates dopamine. Dopamine is that feel-good hormone of reward, okay? So pornography activates the dopamine pathways of reward and motivation for more reward, okay? Similarly to other addictive processes, leading to escalation because what you're watching at first, or what your partner's been watching, or the perpetrator's been watching, soon is boring. And there's an escalation of what they're watching, harder porn, more of it, more often, longer periods of time. It's a desensitization, so there's greater risk of violence against women, their partners, and objectification. It's reduced empathy, and that's across the board for most people. Low to no emotional intelligence. In other words, it really feels like the partner is narcissistic. And I know that word is thrown out quite a bit, and they may be narcissistic, but they may not be. It may be as a result of the addiction, and the low emotional intelligence is where the lack of empathy lie. So unless they are fully assessed by a psychiatrist or psychologist regarding narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder, we don't know if they actually have that. We can all have some traits of narcissism at some points in time. But for the most part, in addiction and protecting the addiction, there is several of the narcissistic traits that are present. Okay. Difficulty bonding with real partners. There tends to be a withdrawal, especially around intimacy. And if there is intimacy and there is a porn addiction, it's often not intimacy that is really a feel good. It's about, excuse my language, it's getting off and it's recreating often what they have watched in porn. That's the only thing that will help get an erection. Um, Guys, how many of you have erectile dysfunction? It's from the porn. It's not medical, not medication. High percentage is from the pornography. Back in 2016, there was a Times magazine article on the highest raising population for erectile dysfunction was not in elderly men. It was an 18 to 25-year-old young men, and it was due to pornography. Okay. So porn does to the brain similarly what cocaine does to the brain. So think about that. If you wouldn't take coke every day or multiple times a day, but you're watching porn, it's doing the same thing to your brain. Okay. So this directly impacts relational repair. You can't repair when porn is active, okay, being actively watched. A healthy relationship involves oxytocin, it's the feel-good hormone, and a vasopressin, okay, as well as dopamine. So all three. Okay. But a healthy, loving relationship is supported by the neurochemical oxytocin. And this hormone and neurochemical is needed in order to bond and feel safe with one another. It's a bonding. Okay. It's connecting, coming closer. The hormone, and oxytocin in healthy relationships strengthens sexual intimacy, pair bonding together. So that's that connection by linking pleasure, safety, emotional connection, and one specific partner. Okay. The hormone and neurotransmitter, vasopressin, is associated with the formation and maintenance of a healthy long-term relationship by promoting monogamy, trust, and protective behaviors. So that's outside of the sexual intimacy. That's which is oxytocin. This neurotransmitter, this vasopressin, is taking care of. You know what? The weather's really bad. Let me drive you to work. I'll go with you, or whatever the case may be. Okay. It is those protective behaviors. It works alongside oxytocin and dopamine, which is the reward center, when the brain's reward system or within the brain's reward system to support deep attachment. Okay. Healthy attachment. Pornography, however, steals this all away. It leaves only dopamine, which is in the pleasure center of the brain. And dopamine is a feel-good hormone, but it is not linked to love, to safety, and to connection. Only risk, reward, and motivation for that reward for the most part. Okay. The more that dopamine is activated, and the addiction component is the high of dopamine, and that's again usually the thought, the planning, the so on, okay, is that's the dopamine. When you get that dopamine high, that's what people are looking for. And then afterwards, it is that letdown, and that's where shame happens, maybe hatred of self. Some people have guilt about what they've done, but that's why it's all in secrecy. Okay. As well as the more the pleasure center is activated, the larger the pleasure center gets, and the executive center, where we have logical reasoning, decision making, even our visual memories are in the prefrontal cortex, which is our executive center, it gets smaller. So you have a harder time concentrating, getting your work done, like for your job. There's, that drive to I'm just going to look at porn on my phone. I'm supposed to be working, but I'm going to do this instead. Okay. So oxytocin increases the feelings of love, connection, and safety. A healthy relationship involves shared emotions, feelings, connections, vulnerability, and shared control. And I'm going to add consent, where pornography feeds the dopamine hit and numbs emotions, creating low emotional intelligence, does not require shared control, which is why sexual assault and rape, as well as perpetrator violence, increase substantially for those addicted. Keep that in mind. There is no vulnerability and no connection involved when you're watching pornography. So, how does pornography disrupt pair bonding? So that connection, okay? Pornography conditions sexual arousal towards novelty, variety, visual intensity, and objectification, and escalation, as I said, which often leads to then sex addiction, okay? Over time, the brain begins associating sexual reward with screens, not with a partner's presence, their touch, their voice, and emotional attunement connection. This is conditioning. This is what happens with pornography. More you watch, the more conditioned your brain gets. So it's not a character flaw. However, know that addiction across the board is a choice. And every time you choose it, you don't choose your partner. Pornography, Pornography strongly activates dopamine, but offers little to no oxytocin. There is no oxytocin, meaning stimulation without bonding. Over time, this imbalance will reduce empathy, so that's the low emotional intelligence, and undermine emotional connection and weaken relational attachment. And that's often where um, the sexual anorexia, intimacy anorexia comes into play. Withdrawing, not people who are addicted to porn, there's two streams. One will still have sex with their partner, but it's often they're recreating or fantasizing in their head while engaging with their partner what they have watched in porn. Okay. Or the other stream is that there is lack of intimacy, lack of sexual behavior. Okay. So pornography and attachment. Porn conditions arousal to screens rather than human connection, leading partners to feel sexually replaced, unchosen, unsafe, disconnected. Does it sound similar to cheating? That's why. Okay. When a partner's energy is repeatedly directed elsewhere, especially in secrecy, partners often say, I feel replaced. I'm going to be going over the 30 minutes today. I just realized. And they are not wrong. They are being replaced. Their nervous system is detecting my partner is sexually bonded elsewhere. And I didn't consent. I had no say in the matter. This is attachment injury, not insecurity. So, Fight the New Drug clearly documents how pornography often involves secrecy, lying, justification, and gaslighting, which are all parts of betrayal, which means that trauma is relational, not moral. Can there be moral injury? Yes, I've talked about that in an earlier podcast, that there can be moral injury, that I didn't know my partner was capable of this, that this goes against everything, all my values, all my morals. How could I be with a partner that could do this? Okay. So now I'm going to go into the sex addiction part. Here, sex addiction, deceptive sexuality, and betrayal trauma. So I also want to be very clear about something that is often misunderstood or oversimplified when we talk about pornography, and that is sex addiction, or what Dr. Omar Minwalla more accurately frames as deceptive sexuality and integrity abuse. Okay. From a betrayal trauma perspective, sex addiction is not defined solely by frequency or intensity of sexual behavior. It is defined by patterns, okay, of secrecy, entitlement, deception, and lack of empathy carried out within a partner's informed consent. Or we can say lack thereof of truly informed consent. Okay. In other words, the core issue is not sex. The core issue is relational harm. So, what does sex addiction actually entail? How do you know if you have it or not? How do you know if your partner has it or not? So, I'm going to use Dr. Minwalla's framework. Sex addiction often involves a wide range of deceptive sexual behaviors, many of which are minimized, normalized, and sometimes that's normalized by society or normalized by friends or minimized by friends or the perpetrator, the person with the addiction, or hidden in plain sight. Okay. These behaviors can include persistent flirting that crosses relational boundaries, that feel disrespectful to if the partner, the spouse, the survivor, I'm going to use that, the survivor, if the survivor knows about some of the flirting, it may feel disrespectful to them. And if it's disrespectful to the partner, I guarantee you that flirting is disrespectful to the recipient of it. And often they are objectified. Yes, I feel very strongly about this. Okay. These behaviors can also include chronic sexual objectification of others. In the words of Craig Pera, who is the founder of the Mindful Habit System, who helps people with porn and sex addiction, sexual objectification, anything longer than 2 seconds. We tend to glance at people and we glance away as we're going into a mall or a store. Anything more than 2 seconds, we are staring and we're objectifying. Okay. Unless we think, hey, is that, so and so? Haven't seen them in 10 years, or whatever the case may be, a little bit different. Okay. But when we're looking at someone and it triggers that fantasy or sexual urges, that's objectification. Okay. Online sex addiction also is classified as online sexual activity, such as pornography combined with escalation, chat rooms and chat sites. Okay, so talking to real people, webcam interactions. Okay, and that can be OnlyFans, that can be meeting someone in different groups or chat rooms and then deciding to meet online. So it doesn't have to be in person. Mutual sexual activity via webcam, sexting, the flirting, okay, messaging, participation in fetish groups or sexual forums. Um, Sex addiction is not limited to screens. It can also include in-person acting out, such as regular visits to strip clubs, even if it's not regular visits, even if it's a couple of visits. Okay? Massage parlors or sexualized body services, use of escorts or prostitutes. Sexual encounters are arranged through bars, workplaces, conferences, hotels, dating apps. Actually, I'm going to put the dating app used secretly in the first group as well. Just as long as you're on a dating app and you're supposed to be in a monogamous relationship or your partner believes that they're in a monogamous relationship, it is sex addiction. Okay. Social media sites used for hooking up. Okay. Those are all forms of having a sex addiction. So, grooming and expansion of deception. Another critical piece that is often left out of public conversations is grooming behavior. And this is in porn and sex addiction. Okay. Sex addiction frequently involves gradual grooming of potential sexual partners, which can look like lunch dates framed as innocent, gift giving, texting or messaging on a regular or semi-regular basis, even a good night, emotional intimacy disguised as friendship, creating secrecy and specialness, slowly sexualizing the connection over time. I'm going to add in these lunch dates, the texting, messaging, the emotional intimacy described, the creating secrecy and specialness. I'm going to add to this. It's not an or. It can be an or. Um, if you are lying about, if you are the perpetrator, the person with the addictions, and you are lying to one of these lunch dates or online messaging about how terrible your partner is, that is grooming. If you are lying to them in order to get what you want, that is grooming and it is psychological abuse. I don't hold back. Okay? From a trauma-informed lens, this matters deeply because grooming is intentional relational manipulation. And again, the trauma does not come from sexual desire. The trauma comes from deception and double lives. So, why is this betrayal trauma? Again, for partners, discovery often reveals not a single behavior, but an entire hidden sexual world that they were not a part of. This is what Dr. Omar Minwala describes in The Secret Sexual Basement, where, remember, the one partner lives in a reality of assumed honesty and exclusivity, and the other partner maintains a parallel sexual life in the basement. When this hidden reality is discovered, partners often experience shock, disorientation, confusion, intrusive imagery, loss of self-trust, loss of relational safety, and a shattered sense of identity and reality. This is not jealousy. This is betrayal trauma. And, minimization, when a perpetrator minimizes what they have done, it causes so much more harm. So much more harm. I can't stress that enough. When a sex addiction is framed at, porn or sex addiction is just framed at, it's just urges. It's only flirting. I'm not hurting anyone. Yeah, you are. It's just porn, just compulsive behavior. We weren't married. No cheating because it wasn't physical. Partners are re-traumatized by that minimization. Because what is being erased is the lived experience of the deception, of the psychological abuse. Cheating is not defined by physical contact. Cheating is defined by violated consent and broken trust. So, for all listeners, I want to be very clear. Here are some clarifications, okay? If you're listening and recognizing your experience in this, please hear this clearly. You are not naive. You are not controlling. You are not overreacting for survivors, okay? Your nervous system responded to relational danger. And if you are the person who caused harm, this is also important for you to know. Recovery is not about stopping the behaviors alone. It isn't. Recovery requires integrity, empathy, and full accountability of relational harm. So when we combine the neuroscience, and attachment research. And that's the neuroscience from betrayal trauma from Dr. Jennifer Fried and Pamela Burrell and so many others. And fight the new drugs findings to how Dr. Jill Manning's partner impact research, and I'm going to talk about that in just a few minutes, and Dr. Omar Minwalla's integrity abuse framework. We can say very clearly why sex addiction and deceptive sexuality are experienced as betrayal trauma, along with porn addiction, not moral failure and not insecurity. Okay. So the impact on partners, and this is by Dr. Jill Manning. So her research documents partner impacts, including, again, PTSD symptoms, often it's complex trauma, hypervigilance, sexual comparison and body shame, anxiety and depression, attachment trauma, loss of sexual safety. These partners are frequently misdiagnosed as codependent, and you've just had a podcast on codependent versus safety. That they're also misdiagnosed with anxious and that they're controlling. When they are responding normally to betrayal trauma, okay? And Craig Para, founder of the Mindful Habits System, emphasizes that sobriety is not just healing, okay? This is recovery versus real repair. So repair requires radical honesty, empathy for partner trauma, transparency, full transparency for as long as the partner needs it, accountability, daily integrity-based actions. You can't just break a habit, and addiction is a habit, okay? And it is a choice. You have to make multiple new, healthy, growth-producing habits. And it can take weeks for these new habits to create new pathways in the brain, okay? And trauma-informed support for partners. Without empathy, trust cannot be rebuilt. Just trust me. It's been. Without empathy, trust cannot be rebuilt. So in closing, if you are questioning your reality, you are not broken, although you may feel that way. You are not overreacting. You've experienced betrayal trauma. If you caused harm, if you were the one to cause the harm, the betrayal, your partner's pain is not the problem. Their triggers are not the problem. The deception is. The gaslighting, manipulation, abuse is. So I've got 4 takeaways for today for you. And one is that pornography, as well as sex addiction in all forms, is cheating, as it violates consent, involves deception, and fractures trust. Sex addiction is not about the sexual act. It is about the deception and may or may not involve sexually acting out in person. It is the interactions with real people through objectification, chat rooms, texting, flirting, webcams, websites, in-person meetings. And when I say websites, that means dating sites, okay? Fetish groups, social media, etc. Sex addiction can be any one of those, all of those, or a combination thereof, and often is. Betrayal trauma is a nervous system injury caused by living in a false reality. And the 4th takeaway is true healing requires integrity. And these are the true healing for both parties requires integrity from the perpetrator, empathy from the perpetrator, and accountability from the perpetrator, not minimization, not minimization. And this is for professionals. If there's any professionals listening, or if you want to write them down for your therapist, just listen to this part again. We're at 44 minutes, basically. is that core points for professionals is pornography-related betrayal is trauma, not codependency. And I'm going to say pornography and sex addiction-related betrayal is not codependency. Partner symptoms mirror PTSD, but are often complex trauma. Disclosure must be structured and trauma-informed. Safety precedes attachment repair. Don't try to work with the couples until the survivor is feeling safe and the perpetrator has done not finished, completely finished recovery, but has done a lot of the work towards recovery. Okay. And also, addiction framing alone is insufficient. Healing must include betrayal trauma work. Okay. I'm going to do my next podcast is about the addiction framing versus including betrayal trauma in the work needed for those who with the addiction. Okay. And also for professionals is empathy deficits must be addressed clinically, okay, with the perpetrators. Key clinical error to avoid is treating partner pain as pathology instead of trauma, or blaming it on their childhood or something else that happened rather than what has happened most recently. There may be some things from the past, but let's talk about what they need and validate them. Okay. So for the partners, again, if pornography or sex addiction were hidden from you, and most likely in most cases, it was, or at least you didn't know the scope of it. You are not insecure, you are not controlling, and you're not too sensitive. You're responding to deception, violated consent, attachment injury, and betrayal trauma. Your body is seeking safety, not control. Healing requires truth, full transparency, empathy, and time. And that time is on your timeline, and everyone is different for what that looks like. So I want to thank you for joining me today, and I apologize for going over so much. I try to keep within the 30 minutes, and this one's over 47. But it's very, very important. And the next few are going to follow along. Hopefully not as long, but follow along in this, what I'm going to talk about, okay? So thank you for joining me today on Beneath the Silence, Healing the Wounds of Betrayal Trauma. Remember that healing is possible, even from the deepest, darkest wounds. If this episode resonated with you, please let me know, leave a comment, or send me an email. Sandy@sandrajoy.ca. If you would like more resources or support, you can visit me at sandrajoy.ca or from my email. For those interested in my betrayal trauma course, you can also find it on my website, again, sandrajoy.ca. If you are able, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like and share the podcast so that others may learn and find community. Join me next week as we continue this conversation as I discuss the similarities and the differences between recovery from a betrayal trauma lens versus the regular approach to addiction recovery. Okay. This will be an informative podcast so that each of you can take this information and make decisions and choices based on what is right for you. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself. And remember, I see you, I hear you, and I believe you. Until we meet again.